It's a. We've all heard this before. I loved you at hello. But
Same here.
I did love you at hello.
Same here, buddy.
I've never fished with you.
Nope.
But every time I see you, there's something to be said.
Yeah. Well,
to each other.
I can talk. And,
yes, you can.
So could you. We're really good at our craft.
Yeah.
But, it's so funny because you and I exist in completely different worlds fishing-wise. I'm not a tournament guy, not a record guy, not a hardcore guy, not a driven guy. And you are the epitome of a competitor. I mean, when you rise to whatever occasion is necessary. And to me, I'm in church when I'm in the outdoors, when I'm in a boat, when I'm in the Everglades, I'm in church, and you're winning tournaments. And they're two very different philosophies. But you know what? We all love the same thing.
Yeah.
We still love the same thing.
Commonality there for sure.
Yeah.
Why did you, because look, I have a photograph, I think in my book, with you and Huff.
Yeah, and Harry.
Yeah. Three of the best guides that Keys has ever known.
Yeah. Well, two of them anyway.
You
and
Huff.
You and Huff.
You and Huff.
Yeah.
But, so look, these guys cut their teeth on fishing hard, as you did.
Yeah.
But I think, too, why did you not have that competitive urge to win all these great tournaments that they did? The Gold Cup, what did that mean to you?
Just a pain in the ass that people were driving over a whole lot of fish trying to get somewhere when I was trying to catch something. So I just went bone fishing for 5 days. It was simple.
It was perfect.
Yeah. Then at 3 o'clock, I'd go tarpon fishing.
You just had no desire to compete in that tournament, to win that
it's
trophy.
funny. All my life, my dad, who was the nicest human being I've ever known, was never a competitive guy. When I played baseball, I ran track, I played basketball, and I played a little football. And I was never outstanding. Everybody thought I should be a great basketball player because I was a center and I was the hot, tallest kid. And, I sucked, then somebody whipped me a behind-the-back pass and hit me in the face. It was like, what? Pay attention.
Are you not coordinated?
I'm coordinated, but I'm not. I don't rise to competition. Competition kind of wigs me out, and to me, I settle into my best zone is when I'm learning something. And my best sports were solo. I was good at track. I was pretty good at track. And that's the kind of thing where you're competing, but only with yourself.
Right.
And you're learning about yourself. You're learning about your limits. And my limits in like fishing, there were no limits. I just wanted to learn. And that was my competition. How much can I learn today?
The beauty of competition for me over all these years is more so than trying to win and beat somebody, but I was always interested in the war that I'm waging between my mind and my body.
Yeah.
My body's trying to tell my golf swing, okay, pause at the top. It's all about tempo. In skiing, it was okay. Wait for the apex you hit to the apex and that door to open to start that turn to come in on the gate. So there's always a timing thing, and there's a communication that goes on between the brain and the body. And I was always interested to see how my body would react, and that's why I've always loved competition. Mm-hmm. When you see people like Michael Jordan, hit the 3-pointer at the buzzer in front of a billion people watching on TV, let alone a stadium, how do these guys do that? And it's just amazing to me because I'm good at what I do in small forms, but I don't know if I could do that, with that kind of an audience. But in fishing, I would think that you would be okay because it's just you and your angler.
Yeah.
You think that you could make a mistake as a guide in a tournament?
Oh, all the time. Sure. I mean, everybody makes mistakes. You make them as an angler. Guides make them as guides.
But you think you'd make a bigger mistake because you're in a tournament?
No, I just shy away.
You didn't like it.
I just shy away from competition. It's like don't want to do it.
I'm kind of getting there.
And as I get older, Andy, to me, there's so many things that I felt were important when I was young. I didn't have to, catch a world record, or I didn't have to do this. But now it's how I'm feeling about it. And I've done enough stuff where I don't need to prove anything to myself anymore.
For sure.
I need to go out there and say, God, that was a good day.
Right.
And that's what it's all about. As you get older, I watch my father age, and the things that how I watched him have his enjoyment at whatever he was doing, it became more and more apparent to me that it's not the big stuff, it's the little stuff. Right. And when you go to bed at night and you think about the day and you think, God, that was a great day, that's what counts.
Yeah, good.
I didn't beat anybody. And I used to, play golf. Played golf competitively for a number of years too, and I didn't like it. I don't play golf anymore at all. I did not like the fact that my whole mood was determined by, did I succeed in beating somebody?
How about a score? Just you personally with a score? Could you play golf alone?
Oh, I loved it. The last time I played golf, I went out and I played a perfect par round, 18 pars. I never did that when I was playing well.
Yeah,
and I hadn't played in 3 years. Wow. And it was like the coolest thing. And I thought, I can't ever do better than this. And I don't think I've played 3 holes since. Harry and I used to play. Harry Spear and I used to play a lot. And of course, then I had to beat him because he needed beating. He needed a good beating.
Well, I know you and Harry used to fish a lot together.
A lot, yeah.
Tell me about what it's like to fish with Harry. Maybe one of your better
experiences.
Oh,
fishing with Harry is just a trip. We're such good friends, and we've been friends for 45 or 47 years, something or other. And I remember that we used to go bone fishing when these bone fish flies that we were working on were evolving. And we got them down so dialed in where it wasn't a maybe you were going to get a fish, and a big one. So he would come to Islamorada, the home of the big one, and he and I would go out, and then would have dinner, and then he'd stay, and then we'd go out in the morning. And so we'd go fish in the evening, and we'd go fish in the morning. And we had days where we caught so many fish over 10 pounds, tailing. That was what we had to do. That was the best of the best. And we just did that. And it was ridiculous how good it was. And then we would kind of go, well, mine was 12 and a half. I think mine was 13. And it would be that kind of competition, but we were laughing the whole time because we didn't care. They were just enormous, big tubs. Yeah. And we had so much fun. But yeah, I love fishing with Harry. Harry's been through a lot of iterations in life, and as have we all. And he's a great guy to be with. And I used to call him Harry the Hawk because he had the best eyes, and he'd ace me on that. Now I can see way better than he can. I just like to point that out. But anyway,
But did you guys revolutionize like the mow or an epoxy? Bonefish fly?
And we both worked on that. I kind of did one thing and he did another, but we both came up with a mother of epoxy is kind of what it ended up being called. And I still have a few, and this is back in 80, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 6 or something. And it was kind of, it changed the game. I mean, we used to fish with snapping shrimp and these silly ass things that wouldn't catch anything anymore in the Keys.
Why did it change the game?
Because it was a shrimp, and it was so good. Here's a quick story so I had a guy who was a friend of mine who was a well-known fisherman down there who was mainly a bait fisherman. And he says, I heard you got a fly that'll outfish anything. I said, yeah, that's right. And he goes, I could outfish it. I said, with what? He said, with a shrimp. I said, no, you couldn't. And he goes, what? I can throw a shrimp and you can throw a fly and you're going to outfish me? I said, absolutely. He said, all right, you want to make a bet? And I said, no, I'll do better than that. I said, I will make you a bet. I will take you in the boat, and you and I will go fishing, and you're going to get a shot, and then I'm going to get a shot. I'll do all the pulling. I said, I'll pull you up to fish, and if you don't like it, if you don't like the angle, you don't like the shot, don't take the shot. But if you say, okay, I'm going to throw, you can use crabs, shrimp, use anything you want. Pork chops, I don't care. I said, it's going to cost you $1,000 if you don't hook that fish. And then I'll do the same thing with my fly. Now, I'm going to say, I don't like it. They're tailing away. I can't get in front of them. But I said, I'll bet you $1,000 a cast.
That says a lot coming from you.
Buddy, it was a lot coming from me.
But coming from everybody, but especially you.
But suddenly I became competitive, apparently. But anyway, I just wanted to take this guy's money home, because his arrogance was going to cost him.
Right.
And we got to the point where we were going to go one day, and it was blowing too hard. And then he started asking questions, and he backed off. He said, "No, I don't think I want to do that."
So tell me about the fly. Tell me about this fly.
Well, the fly is a tan marabou tail. When we used to use mustad hooks, which is, decades and decades ago, it was a 3407.
SS?
No,
that was the tarpon. The SS was a tarpon.
Yeah, never used that.
Yeah,
just yes. And it was a triangular head on a with epoxy. And what I would do is I would burn monofilament eyes, so you'd have the eyes about half an inch, 3/4 of an inch, and then you would take thread and wrap around the eye, take it to the eye of the hook, wrap it around there. So you'd form a triangle with the thread.
Right.
To hold the epoxy.
Right.
And then you would take a daub of real epoxy, not 5-minute epoxy, and kind of trowel it on there with a matchstick, and then the thread would hold it, and then you would have to keep turning it,
keep it from dripping
by hand, so it wouldn't get a drip and a bulge. And then after it started to cure, then you were all set. You'd put them out in the sun, and it would be a big deal to make 6. That'd be like, had a whole morning here.
So Bobby Branham's got a similar fly to that.
Yeah,
and he copied your
your
fly.
I think that was the only game in town at the beginning. I mean, between Harry and I, and then Steve did the the Merkin, and there was and Nat Ragland, to his credit, did a lot of work too with the mother of epoxy permit fly.
Right.
I was going to say, because you said that the tail end was preferably a tan marabou.
Tan marabou with about 2 strips of crystal flesh.
Okay, because Bob Branham's had splayed out feathers, if I'm not mistaken.
But his head was the same.
The head was
similar.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it was just an automatic as automatic. You'd never get a refusal. It was like, what? He ate it? Yes.
With Permit too.
Permit liked it, but it was small for Permit, and it wasn't heavy. Mine was unweighted because all I did was tailing fish.
Tell me about when you guys used to fish together.
Harry,
yeah,
we had some times, buddy. We had some times, and I probably shouldn't talk about all of them, but one I can remember that we were in Key West, and Harry said, "Let's go to Key West, catch permit." I said, "Okay, cool," because I really didn't want to catch permit. I wanted to catch a mutton snapper, which was kind of my big deal then. Back then, there were quite a few mutton snapper, and you could actually go fish for them, and be relatively, confident you were going to get some good throws. So anyway, we go to Key West, and it is glass, calm, not a cloud in the sky. The absolute worst situation you could ever have for permit. And Harry, we wake up, and he goes, we're going to have a great day. And I said, I think we ought to go bone fishing or tarpon fishing. He goes, nah, we're going to go permit fishing. I said, it's ridiculous. It's calm. It's clear. We're not going to catch anything. And he goes, we'll catch them, bro. I said, no.
Always bro.
Always bro. Still is to this day. It's bro. If the phone rang, it'd be bro. And so anyway, we take off in his boat, and we're driving him around, and the tide is a medium tide, not rising, falling. And we take off across Lavina Bank, and I'm thinking he's out of his mind. He's running aground. It was like 18 inches deep, and we're wide open. And I go, what are you doing? We're going to run aground here, dude. And it's the bank's 6 miles long. And he goes, we're looking for permit. And I go, you got to be kidding me. Get out of here. And he keeps going, and sure enough, in the middle of Lavina Bank, here comes a big wake we're pushing out in this slick, calm water, and it blows up. It's a school of permit, and they take off. And Harry turns the key off. And there we are in the middle of Lavina Bank in 18 inches of water. I'm thinking, well, we're going to die here. We'll just starve to death, and Nat Ragland will find me. And And so the fish run off about 200 or 300 yards, and the wake stops, and tails come up. And I went, oh, Jesus. And he says, see? So he pulls over, and sure enough, we catch a permit on a fly. And I go, impossible. But that's Harry. You never knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, he was. Look, I'd never seen anything like this before because I had only fished saltwater stuff a couple times with Bob Branham.
Yeah.
And then I got hooked up with Harry, and I fished with him for 7 years.
Two opposite sides of the spectrum.
Yeah. Oh, my God. I mean, it's like he was for 40 days a year. It was Harry and I for 7 years. And I didn't know the difference, and you do.
Yeah.
You knew the difference.
Yeah.
And if I would have been on that boat in the Lavinia Bank, I'd be going, oh, wow, this is cool.
Yeah.
But but here you go. Two great fishermen that have different methodologies and attack plans. What about Huff?
Oh, well,
Huff,
I mean,
Huff story?
I got Huff stories. Everybody has them. He's the best. And I mean, when, they call him the god of guides and all this stuff. I mean,
is he?
I hate, of
is
course
he?
he is. Of course he is. And I just hate to use that term. I just don't want to swell him up anymore. But you can't even swell the guy up because he's just so humble. Yeah. You can't. He's the best human being. And so one time a girlfriend, I wanted to go to Europe for my 60th birthday with a lot of money and just go wild, and she didn't want to. And I said, well, it's my birthday and I'm paying to go, so why don't you want to go? I don't want to go and, drink and philander around, which is my my whole purpose of going.
The objective.
Yeah. I wanted to see some cool things and places and people. So anyway, she didn't want to go, and I was kind of bummed. I said, well, here it is, my 60th birthday, and now what? I got to do something. And she says, oh, but I have an alternative, and you're going to really like it. I said, oh, yeah, where? Prague? No, wait, what? And she says, I called Steve, and he's going to take you fishing on your birthday. Huff.
Very cool.
And I went, oh, my God, he's second choice. So I go over there. I drive to Everglades City, and I took myself bass fishing on the way over just to make sure it was going to be a really good trip. And I roll into his yard, and Patty has made a birthday cake for me, and she's cooking dinner. And Huff comes out of the house, and I've got this little pirogue boat that I bass fish in, and he was all about that. We're looking at that. So he said, what do you want to do tomorrow? I said, I'll tell you what I don't want to do. I don't want to catch tarpon. I want to catch a snook or a redfish, and I just want to be with you and have fun, dude. That's all I want to do. And it doesn't matter if we catch anything anyway.
Right.
He says, oh, we're going to catch something. So we have this gorgeous dinner that they cooked, snook that died at his hand, not mine. And we
released him dead.
Yeah. And so we go out in the morning and have a great breakfast and go on. And I said, I don't want to have this be like dawn to dark. I want it to be fun for you and for me, because just being with you is the best. So we go out, we're framming around, and he said, I really think we should look for tarpon. All right. Okay. So we go and pull across a bunch of muddy water and don't see a tarpon. So I said, well, now that we have that out of the way, let's go fishing. So we go and we look, and the fishing was not very good, but I ended up, wanting to snook fish. So all I fish with is a 6-weight rod. That's it. If I never fish with another rod the rest of my life, that'd be fine. 6-weight is fine. And he goes, why are you going to fish with a 6-weight rod? I said, because that's what I want to use. And he goes, well, that's absurd. I said, it's going to catch any snook. I'm going to fish a 15-pound tippet on it. And what difference does it make? I don't care.
It's my day.
It's my day. And so I had a 30-pound shock leader rigged up that was about 16 inches long, so I could retie after a couple bites.
Steve let you do that?
And there was no bimini twist. And he looks at that, and he was so disgusted. He got off the platform, and he comes up. He said, let me see that shit. And he's disgusted. He says, I'm not going to pull for that. We're using that. And I said, you're pulling. This is my birthday, and you're taking me. Now, I'm going to fish with whatever I want. He goes, that's not even fly fishing. I said, Steve, fly rod, reel, line, it's fly fishing. Nope, it's not fly fishing. I said, you mean I got to tie a bimini twist and 11.99 inch shock leader? Yep. I said, too bad. Ain't happening. Start pulling. So it ended up that he ragged me all day long. And it wasn't great by his standards, but we caught a couple snook and a couple redfish, and I had a great time. We came back and another great dinner, and it was just so great being with him. But I'll never forget that he was so, and he would not pull. I mean, he would not fish. I said, okay, I caught a fish. I'm pulling. Nope. Your birthday? I'm pulling.
Yeah, he sets the standard for class.
Oh, the best.
And integrity,
the
too.
Best of the best. He's my best friend that I never see. I love the guy. I'd jump off a building for the guy.
Right.
7 days a week. And I never see him. We never get together. He lives over there. I live other places. He's been to this house in Montana twice.
You see him more here than there.
Yeah, and he wouldn't let me take him fishing. I was painting this house. And he spent 3 days on a ladder with a paintbrush, he and Patty both.
Wow.
The only thing he would do is drink beer. But he would not go. I said, Steve, let's just fish in the morning. And if you want to help me paint, we'll paint in the afternoon for a couple hours. Nope.
Gotta get this house done.
Painting all day. We're getting this sumbitch done. I went, Jesus.
That's
Amazing.
crazy.
He's the hardest man in the world. But
Yeah.
who doesn't love him?
Yeah,
I don't
for
think
sure.
I don't think he's got an enemy on planet Earth.
Yeah, there's
And
no
his
way.
boys, Chad and Dustin, are a reflection of that.
Yeah.
They're the best.
The best.
Well, Rick, I don't know you very well, but I'm very interested in, to see how you got down to the Keys. Were you born in the Keys? Or?
No, hell. I grew up in Ohio, and I didn't know doodle about saltwater. And I had the good fortune to win a science contest when I was in high school. And the winners of all the regions of Ohio got to go to Cleveland to meet Jacques Cousteau, who was filming for his television series, The Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau, and he was my absolute hero. He was my Andy Mill, And so this guy was something. I mean, he was something. And it was the first famous person I'd ever met. And so we go, and we all stand up when he comes in, and he's got his little toque on, and he's about 5'4". Hello.
You never saw him? Do you know who he is?
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
well, he was an amazing human being. So I was just taken with his show and his personality and everything. And so I came back from that, and I told my mom and dad, I said, I want to be a marine biologist.
Quickly.
Which doesn't happen for a lot of kids in Akron, Ohio, So,
yeah, sure.
So everything, all of a sudden, everything I wanted to do was this. I wanted to be biologist. My father was a doctor, and I kind of thought I was going to be a doctor. So that kind of got my thinking changed. So then it was so interesting that I decided when I applied to college, I applied to University of Hawaii. I applied to a lot of schools. I was an honors student, and I got in all of them, or got accepted to all of them. And my first choice was Hawaii. And the University of Hawaii had a great program, especially graduate program, marine biology, but they didn't have on-student housing for freshmen. And even I knew that I was going to go off the rails in Honolulu. Surf's up, dude. And I'd flunk out in 6 weeks, So my grandparents lived on the west coast of Florida and over by Sarasota. And so I ended up going to the University of Miami in Coral Gables. And that's where I learned how to fish.
Did you meet Huff there?
He was a year ahead of me, and we ran into each other, didn't really know each other, but I ran into him on Long Key Bridge, and he would fish Long Key Bridge like a madman for permit, and he'd be drifting crabs to permit from the bridge and doing all this crazy stuff. And he was kind of legendary. I was in a fishing club, and they all go, hey, do you know about that guy Huff? Yeah, even then he was like the dude.
Before he even had a boat.
Oh, hell no. He was on his bicycle. I mean, he was the underground, unknown, unseen, ghosty fish
Mythical creature of the bridge.
He was, and he would catch stuff, and I'd hear what he caught and go, damn, wait a minute, what?
So you got down to Miami. You were going to the University of Miami, and
Yes.
then did you have a friend group that went down to the Keys and fished the bridges?
I would hitchhike to the Keys. I had a sign. I've got a picture of somebody took of me in front of University of Miami in 1967 with a sign that said Islamorada, hitchhiking down US 1.
Oh, that's
No
such a great
kidding.
photo.
Yeah, and that was my life. And then I had a sign on the flip side, University of Miami. And so I would hitchhike down to the Keys. I would sleep on the bridges, on the catwalks, and fish all night until I passed out. You'd fish till you dropped.
Right.
And then you'd just lay down on the catwalk and sleep. You'd roll up your jacket or your raincoat, and that was your pillow. And you'd just...
So were you like sophisticated about targeting permit and tarpon, or were you
No.
just have a shrimp on a hook and catching
No,
snappers?
I wanted to catch... I didn't care if I caught a blue runner.
Right.
I mean, it was like, damn, is this cool.
Just
For a
the
kid
tug.
from Ohio...
Right.
For a kid from Ohio, I remember I was out waiting for bonefish on a flat, and there were two manatees up on this flat, and their backs were out. They were sleeping on the flat. They were fat and happy. And I go creeping up to them, and I take my rod, and I go, whoa, boink, boink, and I poke this one manatee, and nothing happened. And I thought, are they dead? And I poked it again, and its eye goes boink, and all of a sudden there is rooster tails of mud and grass. Both of them took off. I thought I was going to get mowed down by two manatees. I'll never forget it in my life. Oh, it was so fun, and would
This
catch
is
shrimp.
early 60s, you're saying.
Yeah.
And then when did you pick up a fly rod?
I learned to fly fish in an unorthodox way, and Lefty Cray liked to point that out to me. So I had a hero, and Andy will know this guy. Gadabout Gaddis was my hero when I was a kid. He had a television show called The Flying Fisherman, and he had a airplane on floats. I think a 182 or something on floats. And he flew all over, and he fished with a fly rod, and he would fish poppers for bass and stripers and things. And so Jacques Cousteau and Gadabout Gaddis were my Saturday heroes. That was my guys. And so I wanted to be Jacques Cousteau, and I wanted to be Gadabout Gaddis. So it required me learning how to fly fish. So I saved up all my money. I got a Garcia Conlon rod, fiberglass, and a Perrine automatic fly reel, and a level H line or something. I don't even remember what it was. And I got some poppers, and I went out on this lake in this rowboat where I'd fished with spinning tackle, and I knew it pretty well. And the bass were bedding, and I could see these big bass just swimming around. And I couldn't, the harder I tried to cast, the faster I went, the harder I went, and pretty soon the water looked like a milkshake on both sides of the boat. I was all by myself, and I just frothed the water, and I couldn't get it 20 feet. It was like making me crazy. So I got angry, and this is not something I'm proud of, but I will admit to you what I did. I took my brand new fly rod reel and threw it at the bass. Threw it at the bass, yelling and screaming. Now, fortunately, I had no witnesses, or I would have been supremely embarrassed. Well, I embarrassed myself to myself, and that's not comfortable ever, So I immediately, when the thing was in the air, arcing over toward the bass, I went, oh, no. But I had a spinning rod, and I had a head and sonic lure, which is a lead and metal lure that sinks. So I spent an hour dibbling around. I finally got my fly rod, hooked my fly line, brought my fly rod in, and put it in the boat. Everything was good. Nothing was broken. I thought, okay. I didn't know anybody at Fly Fish. My mom, dad, none of his friends, nobody. So I thought, okay. So I would religiously watch Gadabout, forming a
The
loop.
timing
And
stuff.
then I finally got it down. So I'll never forget. I was in this shop in Miami that I built fishing rods, and J. Lee Cuddy Associates, which was kind of my hangout, and Bob McChristian with Seamaster Reels. Those were my two hangouts when I was in college. And Lefty Craig comes in, and Lefty was the director of the Miami Met fishing tournament at the time, and he was a big name in Miami then. And so I was talking to Lefty. He said, "Oh, Rick, I've got a new rod. Why don't you come out in the parking lot and let's cast it?" And I thought, oh God, here's the guy who can cast the whole thing with his fingers, So I go out there, and he makes this beautiful cast, and lays it down, and he goes, "Here, you try it." So I make a couple casts, and he goes, "Well, that's pretty good, but it ain't that good." And I went, "Oh God, Jesus, And he said, the problem is you got a hitch in your giddy up. And I said, "What?" And so the basic thing was I didn't stop. It'd be like if you wiggled on your backstroke in golf, if you came back and gave it a wiggle,
Right,
you're not going to be clean on your
Right.
stroke. And the same thing with a fly rod. If you go back and do that,
Hit the wall.
You've put
Drifted.
you've drifted and put a little bit of slack in it, and it will not be you can cast great at 40 feet, but you won't cast great at 60 feet. So anyway, he straightened me out. I got a big kick out of that. And I was with Joan Wolf one time, and Joan is like my real good buddy. She is the best. And I used to take her and Lee fishing. And I tell you what, if there was talent in the boat, it was Joan.
Yeah.
Honest to God. And you can't do better than Joan Wolf. And anyway, so she and I were fiddling around one time with a fly rod, and she looks at me and she goes, "Oh, you've got a lovely cast." I said, "That's crap." I said, "I am a functional caster. I am not a pretty caster. You're beautiful." But it was such I just think about how I learned to cast and all the things that went into it. And I thought, well, at least I can get it out there once in a while.
Right.
Yeah. Good enough for me.
That's what I always say. I'm a functional caster. I'm not a pretty caster. My dad's like,
yeah, he's beautiful.
his
Yeah.
pinky's out. He's bending his knees.
Like, oh,
I'm
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm just I can't do that. Dude.
No, you don't need to be pretty. Just get it out there.
How's he going to be feeling walking back to Colorado?
Yeah.
Hey, we took my car here, bro.
Well, let's talk about your home here. I mean, we're in Montana. It's October 11th. It's elk hunting season. You're a bird guy.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your life, and we'll get back into the fishing because I know you go from here to Arizona.
Yeah.
And you're also in the Keys when the timing is right there.
Yeah.
Tell me about this whole trifecta dynamic.
Well, birds migrate for a reason, and it's winter, and I figure I do too. And
the crazies have snow on them this morning.
Oh, I'm sure they
when are you
did.
going to start flapping your wings?
Well, the October 27th, as a matter of fact. So I'm not a big fan of cold weather. I used to ski, and I used to, kind of like winter. I'd go to Jackson Hole and go skiing or stuff like that. And, I'd go downhill skiing, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing. Younger was okay. But I get cold, and as I get older, I get colder, and I don't like being cold. So it's been interesting to me that I've kind of fell in love with Arizona a long time ago. I went down to visit a girlfriend and go quail hunting, and it became part of my life with bird dogs and quail. And same thing here in Montana, where I hunt and fish. I first started coming out here in 1972. And it was a different world, as was everywhere. So were the Keys. And I was going to buy a big 52-foot Friendship sloop. And I was going to be...
What is that?
It's a very big, classic sailboat built in Maine. Wooden boat, 100-year-old boat, classic. And I thought I would be like the Caribbean soul you can scarcely control, and I was going to be like sailing and catching fish and smuggling dope or something really cool, and that was 1972, and I had a good friend, Paul Brune, who's still my buddy and still kicking, and I was on my way to Alaska to see a girlfriend and hang out up there. And he said, oh, he had just moved. He was the editor of a paper in Miami, and then he became the editor of the Jackson Hole News and Guide. And he said, you need to stop in Wyoming and see me. Well, I hadn't been to Wyoming since I was a kid, with my mom and dad. And so I stopped to see him, loved the whole thing, spent 2 weeks with him, went fishing, climbing, hiking. And then I went to Alaska and I spent 6 weeks up there. And I had the best time. But there was something that was better about Wyoming than Alaska. And I think it was the attitude toward resource. Alaska was a user-based. If there's a moose walking across the road, shoot it.
Yeah.
In Wyoming, people cared. People cared more about the resources. Alaska has gotten to it, but it was way behind at the time. And so I came back and I got thinking about how much I liked Wyoming. So I hitchhiked back to Wyoming and spent another couple weeks. And when I got back to Florida, I called the guy. I'd given him some money on this big sailboat. And we were going to complete the deal in October when I got back. And I said, you know what, I'm going to, if I have to forfeit the money, God bless you, but I think I'm going to change my lifestyle. So I started coming out, and then I started hanging out more in Montana than Wyoming. Ended up buying this house. I used to rent houses in this area, but I found 3 places in Montana that I loved dearly that were all about the resource. It was hunting and fishing, and it was all close and handy and friendly. And I settled on this place, and it's a magnificent place. It's changed a lot, my access. When ranches shell, they're closed. And everywhere in this valley, when I moved here, I could hunt or fish without even a phone call.
And what rivers do you fish around here?
I fish the Gallatin, the Madison, the Jefferson, and the Missouri. They're all within 6 miles.
And you don't have a raft?
I have a jet boat, a john boat, a raft, and a drift boat.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
So you have it all.
I have it all, and I cherish it.
I don't think people realize what kind of an outdoorsman you really are. It's a lot of your people, people in Islamorada.
No, it's funny because in this town, nobody knows what I do, and I've been here for 30 years.
You're home.
They just think I don't know, I'm dilettante with a boat and a rod or something in Florida. I don't know. And in Florida, only the people that have come out here to visit me. Timmy Klein's been here, Norman Duncan's been here, Flip's been here. A lot of people have been here, and they know what I do here. And this is my other life. And in Arizona, nobody knows anything about fishing because there is none, and they don't give a damn what I do there. I'm just a guy that lives in the old barrio and has a dog and goes quail hunting. And
you've never been married?
I have not been married. On the other hand, I've never been divorced. So I take that as a win. At least one win.
Didn't you get married in Christmas Island?
That was a language barrier problem. I thought she proposed to me, and I thought she wanted to be my house girl, and I agreed to that, and suddenly I was married. But I chalk that up to language.
But I think you also have a language problem when you're actually fishing. You all of a sudden start speaking another language.
Well, here's you
give us an example.
You hit a note that's not a sore point, but an interesting point. So, I have a lot of background in biology, marine biology, and so I was always pretty handy with Latin names of algae and fish and trees and stuff that I could relate to, and so all my clients have learned to say to me when fishing really sucks and we're seeing nothing, and I start expounding on the virtues of this Latin name and that Latin name, and this is a shrimp and that's a crab and this is a mangrove tree, and they go, oh no, and I go, what's up? And they go, Latin, you're giving us the Latin. I go, yeah, well, you should know this. And they go, it means we're not going to catch anything here. And I go, okay, you're on to me. You're right. So if you're ever fishing with me, Nikki, and I start in like Latin,
we got to move.
We're done.
So, how did you actually get into the guiding in Islamorada area, and getting your boat and making that transition
it was
from being a bridge guy to a flat skiff?
So ass backwards. So, when I was in college, I got to know this friend in the same class, Richard Gentry, and his father was Earl Gentry, who was one of the old classic Islamorada guides. And as I got fishing more and wanted to get away from wading and bridges where I could actually get some mobility, his father had a broken down, the bottom was coming out of it, Willie Roberts plywood skiff. And Richard said, man, you ought to buy my dad's boat. He'll sell it to you really cheap. So I think I bought it for $300 with the motor. So I took it back to Miami, put it upside down on sawhorses in the front yard of my house, and completely took the boat apart and rebuilt it, remolded the plywood, pieced it together, and I had a bonefish skiff. And that became the thing. And at the time, I was working as a mate on a charter boat in Haulover. And I was running a 52, I wasn't running, I was a mate on a 52-foot Carolina boat out of Haulover Inlet. And that was a tourist deal. You'd take people out, you'd catch a couple dolphin or a bonita and come home.
It's kind of like the same path that Harry had. Harry was a mate as well prior becoming a flat skiff guy.
A lot of guys, Billy Knowles.
And the captain of the boat, because I knew Latin and I could talk to people, I guess, he said, why don't you get your license so you can run the boat, I can get a day off. I thought, okay. So he helped me get my license. So I got my captain's license, which all of a sudden I realized was a big deal, So now I had a skiff and I had a captain's license. But I never in the world dreamed of guiding, never. And so I was in an honors program in the university, and I set my classes up where I had every Tuesday off. And every Tuesday I would go down, and the manager of Bud Mary's Marina in Islamorada named Roland Reams. And Roland was my buddy, and I would come down, and he and I would go fishing every Tuesday. And then every Tuesday night, his wife would cook us dinner, and we would go fish, we would talk about life, and I would drive back to Miami and become a student on Wednesday. So Roland, in the course of my, fishing trips with him, said, well, so I had a major in biology, a minor in English, minor in business, a very weak minor in chemistry. I had all these credentials to become what? I wanted to go to marine biology grad school. That was kind of my thing, University of Miami, Rosenstiel. I got accepted to vet school, dental school, business grad school, and then I thought about law. And I thought, it was wigging me out because it became time to graduate, and I thought, this is why people jump off bridges, man. They make the wrong decision in life. They become homeless, alcoholics, and jump. And I thought, shit. What am I going to do with my life? And Roland said to me one time while we were having dinner, he said, Rick, you've got a boat. You're good at fishing. Why don't you become a guide? I'll see if I can get you into Bud and Mary's. And it was like light bulbs went off. And I thought, whoa, what? And so I still have the piece of paper. And so I sat down on one of my father's prescription pads and worked out. At the time, we were getting $35 a day for guiding. So how much would it take for me to live in the Keys, and could I make it? So I figured out at $35 a day, I would have to fish like 100 days, to break even. To make it. I mean, just eat, and put gas in the boat. So Roland takes me to meet the owner of Bud Mary's, who was Jack Kurtz at the time. And Jack turned into a good friend and a mentor to me. He was a nice man. I took him fishing out here a lot. And he said, I want to be very clear with you, Rick. He said, you're at the bottom of the totem pole. Every guide has to be booked before I will book you. It would not be fair to the other guides. There hadn't been a new guide in 7 years. Huff was a new guide, but he was in Marathon. There were 18 guides in the Upper Keys. I became the 19th.
Wow.
That's counting everybody. And this newspaper guy came down and did a story on me, and it's called The 19th Pole. And isn't that something? And so anyway, I mean, back then you knew everybody with a boat. You knew every orthodontist or surgeon that had a boat in Miami. There were only like 6 of them. Mm-hmm. And so you knew every single person. And I remember the first year I guided, I carried 2 gallons of water, a spare prop, 2 cans of spaghetti, Chef Boyardee, I'd like to point that out, and a mosquito net, because when you were in the backcountry,
in case you get stuck,
if you broke down, there was no radio, there was no anything, and you would go days and not see anybody. And my biggest fear was to like be out there and threaten, somebody's life with extinction because of a bad decision. I ran aground or something.
Right.
Do you remember your first guide trip? Were you nervous?
Oh God, I was beyond nervous. I'll tell you my first guide trip, and it's embarrassing. So, especially going to be to your father to hear this. So I have this.
Did you sleep the night before?
Oh, I was like
yeah,
pins and needles, and it was a live bait tarpon trip. Now, this is not fly. There were hardly any fly fishermen when I started guiding. Hardly any.
And what year is this?
70.
70.
So I have a guy, and his name is Michael Black. He's my client. And so I went out and netted mullet, and I had these live bait rods, and I took him down to Channel 2, and I throw the anchor over, and there's Jimmy Albright, there's Cecil Keith, and there's all the legends. And I'm terrified. I'm terrified my anchor's going to drag. I'm going to float into them. Something terrible's going to happen. I'm going to get, run out of the keys, tarred and feathered. So I kind of go way off to the side so they can't, hear me, yada, yada, yada. I'm nervously talking the whole time. I'm spewing Latin left and right. And so I netted these mullet, anchored the boat, hooked the mullet, put it out for this guy, hand him the rod, and I said, Michael, it was just he and I. And I said, I'm going to put another rod in this rod holder over here, so twice the chance. What a brilliant guide I was, honor student for a reason. And so anyway, I throw the mullet over, and all of a sudden there's this explosion, and this rod that I just put in the rod holder goes wham, and this tarpon's flying out of the water. And I said, get the rod, Jesus, give me the other rod, get the rod, pick that rod up. And anyway, so I reel up his rod. He's got this thrashing this tarpon around, and I'm thinking, oh God, if I pull my anchor, this could get I might get wrapped up with, Jimmy and Cecil and the boys, I said, oh God, Michael, I said, pull hard. We had 30-pound test, pull hard. And the thing was just dumping the reel, falling tide, great big fish, like 120 pounds. And he goes, oh, fish of my lifetime. I want to gaff this fish. I want to tell about the fish. I said, oh God, no. I never even thought about it. I carried a gaff because that's what you did. Yeah, right. But I didn't know how to use it. I've never gaffed anything in my whole life. Oh, I had on the charter boat. I gaffed a dolphin. So we get this fish up, and he finally winds this poor thing, all the way up to the boat. Now, he's fought against the tide. The tarpon's half drowned. We wind it up to the boat, and here I am with this gaff. I don't know if you gaff them over the back, under the belly. I know you don't gaff them in the tail, right? So Michael says, get it, Rick, get it. Oh, my God. And I'm, God, bam, and I hit the thing and almost fall overboard. I missed it. The scales fly off. And I hit it again. I gaffed this thing 7 times. I never got the gaff in it. I don't think I injured it even a little bit. So finally, I've got a dull gaff. I don't know anything. I finally just grabbed the goddamn thing by the face, put a rope through its gills, and tied it to the boat. And I'm just huffing and puffing and panting and sweating. And we go back to the dock, hang the poor dead animal up. And it was like, I don't know, it was big. It was the biggest one caught that day, big fleet tarpon, And I felt sick looking at this dead animal hanging there. And I thought about my gaffing my killer instinct, dude, I don't have it. And, all these stories about Huff and Harry and Timmy Klein, everybody getting snatched out of the boat and drug across. I remember Huff saying, yeah, sea fans were going by and I couldn't let go. Stop it. And that ain't me. And so, I want to play a Peter, Paul, and Mary album or something. Puff the Magic Dragon.
So that was your first day.
Oh, it was my first day of guiding. So this guy was out of his mind. It was like 40 times bigger than anything he'd ever caught in his life, and and at the time it was $35 a day, as I say. So he gave me like $50, and it was like, whoa.
And that was a very generous tip.
Oh God.
$20, yeah.
Oh Jesus. Oh my God. I was like, whoa.
That's wild.
Yeah. That's the only, I'd like to point out, that's the only tarpon I've ever gaffed in my life, and I didn't gaff it well. I didn't even gaff it. I didn't gaff it.
So
I had a whole bunch of scales.
I
remember I went home and there was a scale stuck on my gaff, and I thought, that's icky. That's
so needless to say, you're not a big game
hunter. So
in
53, no, I did it, and I wasn't a good big game hunter. I mean, yes, I did it, and I thought it was something special until I walked up and looked at what I'd done.
Right.
At 200 yards, something falls over. It's pretty sterile. When you walk up and
you see his
with
eyelashes.
a rifle,
yeah.
It's not so sterile.
But how do you feel about harvesting birds?
If it weren't for the dog, I wouldn't do it. It's all about my dog and the experience of watching the dog work. And I feel bad. I mean, I hunted with a very well-known, well-published guy here with Lee Perkins, and I shot this bird, and we all get together over the poor dead bird. And Ben Williams is his name. He lives in Livingston. He's quite the hunter. And Lee Perkins, the owner of Orvis. And Ben says to Lee, he goes, Lee, do you have any popsicle sticks? And I'm looking at Ben, and Lee's looking at Ben like, what? And Ben goes, yeah, do you have any? I'm out. And I'm thinking, what in the hell was he talking about? He said, well, Rick likes to put little white crosses.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
Tell me about your travels with Lee. You guys were good pals.
Oh God. He was my second dad. And, I love that guy. We had 36 years together. And we did everything. He was game for anything, anywhere, anytime. I took him to French Guiana. We went to crazy places doing crazy things. But we had, I learned a lot about life from Lee. I hope he learned a little bit about fishing from me. But he was such a mentor in so many ways, and he was a great guy. On every level, and basically, got me into the ethics of bird hunting and doing it right.
And what are those ethics in doing it right? Because I'm not a bird hunter.
Well, to me, it's got to be clean, and I make things difficult for myself in the hopes that maybe I won't have to shoot one that way. In other words, I won't take a shot that's too long. I won't take a shot I don't think I can make. I don't just like cut loose and hope something drops. And to me, it's cherishing. So it's the moment from the point to the meal when you're having that bird is cherishing it all the way. How to prepare it, how to age it. I'm a little over the top with that, and a lot of people think it's kind of nuts, but it was what Lee did, and
yeah, it's respecting the bird.
It's total. But
respect. It's also too. I think we were speaking earlier about some of the buddies up here. McGuane, the interview yesterday, and Chatham and Harrison.
Yeah,
that was a big part of their lives.
Oh yeah,
was preparing these birds. For days.
Oh
and,
and it's a beautiful thing.
Pairing wines and all that.
Yeah, I have a Hungarian partridge in the refrigerator I'm going to have for dinner tomorrow night, and I age them a certain way, and it's religious to me.
Right.
It's religious.
How do you feel about fishing after all these years? There's two types of fishing here.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the saltwater stuff that you experienced in Islamorada, and the trout fishing here. And is there a difference with that?
Oh, big difference. In the fishing in Montana, the river fishing in Montana has gotten so crowded, so congested, and I'm all about the experience more than the animals. And so I remember about 6 years ago, I was with a friend of mine. We were floating the Madison River, and I hooked a nice rainbow on a pretty light tippet. We had to use light tippet because they're smart, they're hard to catch. So I hooked this fish, and I do not like to catch a fish out of a drift boat. To me, it's not a good experience.
Displacing.
I said, right. So I said, please row over to the bank, let me jump out. So I got out of the bank, and as I landed that fish, which took, 8, 9, 10 minutes, I don't know, 7 boats went by us. And I was like flabbergasted. There were, when you're in your own little zone, maybe you see a boat up there, maybe you see a boat down there, but you don't see 7.
You don't see them passing.
And there were that many boats, and I unhooked that fish and let it go. He said, "Boy, that was great." And I said, "That was great." And I said, "It's also going to be the last." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm done. I'm not going to fish this river ever again." He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. My experience has to be pure, or I'd rather read a book."
It's like Huff leaving the Keys.
Yeah.
But you say you do have a drift boat.
Oh, I've got them all. Yeah. And so now what I've learned to do, Andy, is I will go where and when other people won't be there. So all the guides out here fish, they put on at 8 or 9 in the morning, and they get off at 2, 3, or 4 in the afternoon. I'll launch my boat at 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then do an overnight, and I'll just go float a couple hours, fish, never see a boat, sleep on the bank next to the boat, throw my bag out, cook a little dinner, get up in the morning. They're still 5 miles up there at the boat ramp. I row down, and I'm gone by 10. Nobody even knows I went fishing.
That's awesome.
It's interesting. When my dad was talking to Harry and getting intel on you, Harry said ask him about your overnights just sleeping on the ground. He said that you did 100 nights.
No, like 2,000 nights you slept on the ground.
More than that, probably. Yeah. So my people are going to think what is Andy doing with this guy? So I have a little deal with myself, and when the movie Jeremiah Johnson came out, Robert Redford, and I've talked to him about this. It's pretty interesting. That was me. That was me. That was me. And the Eagles, Desperado, that was me. So between the movie and the soundtrack of the Eagles, I'm that guy. I want to be out there alone. And I always feel that if somebody's with me, no matter how respectful they are of nature or the situation, you can only hear yourself, your internal dialogue, when you're the only person there to hear it. And that's not saying anything against any of my friends that are great outdoorsmen, but I can only hear myself when I'm alone. And so I go alone a lot, camp a lot by myself. And I used to have a credo that I would have to spend, this is my own doing, I would have to spend 100 nights a year on the ground, being in contact with the earth, receiving my energy from the earth, making life decisions from that, absorbing that energy. And this is where the interview went off the rails, right?
Oh, fuck.
How high were you?
No, it didn't.
No, it
didn't matter.
No, but
it doesn't matter.
Rick, I'm going to tell you something. I have always said the greatest reason I like to fish is because I'm alone.
Yep.
Because I can finally hear my thoughts.
That's right.
And my creativity has always been on the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
All my life decisions and
Me too.
and turns down that main road have been made while you're in the woods alone, camping alone, or on the river alone.
That's right.
And I feel sorry for people who are uncomfortable being alone.
Harry, being such a good friend to me, he cannot be alone. It flips him out. He just will not be alone. And like, I eat dinner alone like a lot, and I love it. I love cooking. I cook a full meal for myself. I mean, courses. It's my deal. I love the process. I love to sit down to a beautiful meal. I cut flowers and put them on the table. I'm not gay. I just like I like the process of dressing the situation up.
Do you dress up?
Not usually.
That's a great question.
Sweatpants. But I don't even take a shower for dinner. But the bottom line is, to me, if you're not comfortable by yourself, there's something going on that you're missing. You can't hear yourself. You need other people's input to, I don't know what, to be justified.
So when you'd sleep on the ground, you wouldn't have like a sleeping bag or...
Oh, no, I'm not that dumb. No, the sleeping bag and a pad, no tent. No tent.
Sleeping bag and pad.
Yeah, and if it rains, I just pull a tarp over me.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And it was pretty rad, and a lot of girlfriends were not too thrilled with that.
Last year I was elk hunting alone, and I was in my tent for about 4 nights, and I woke up the 5th morning, and my shoulders were so bad I couldn't pull my bow back. So I had to go back. And get adjusted. But then I had, unfortunately, I broke a rotator cuff this year, so I have bad shoulders now. I can't sleep on my sleeping bag anymore.
Get a better pad. You know what I just got, and it is, I almost hate to admit it because it's not pure. I got a little fold-out cot that weighs next to nothing. It's only about 4 inches off the ground.
Unbelievable.
And what a difference.
It's like the Helinox?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're not, I really believe you absorb energy from Mother Earth.
Yeah.
So do you sleep with your hands on the dirt?
I touch it. No, I don't, but I make sure I touch it a lot.
Wow.
Yeah,
and I go barefoot.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Barefoot.
You were very...
Where did you get all this?
I don't know.
Naturally from...
Too much Jeremiah Johnson, I think.
Okay, look, let's go back. Harry's got a story. He said, ask Rick about when you were tarpon fishing, Pink Floyd, The Wall, and drugs.
Well, I was hoping we wouldn't go there. It's one of his favorite stories. And it was organic, as they say. And we were fishing together, and we would go out and smoke a little weed. And we had, at the age of Walkman, the Sony Walkman, which like prehistory. But so we picked our music, and I happened to pick Pink Floyd, The Wall. So we're fishing the Northeast Country off Marathon. We were in Harry's boat that day. And we go out there, and we both get properly cooked. And we said, are we ready? We're ready. So we pull up to a strip bank out the Northeast where you've been a lot. And we flipped. It was pretty hard to tell who won because, But anyway, Harry lost. I won. I fished. He pulled. So we're pulling down this bank. And I'm Pink Floyding, and he's, I don't know, what, Grateful Dead or something. Anyway, we got him cranked up, right? I mean, we can't hear each other, but we can sure hear the music. So we're pulling down the bank, and Harry, I can just barely hear him go, bro, but I could just, what's that? Waters? Anyway, I turn around, and he's going, and I look over there, and there's this about an 85-pound tarpon snoring away. He goes. Right. So we're all doing it sign language, right? So I take my 10-weight rod, and and this big face appears, snarfles my fly, and I'm on. And I'm going, oh, Jesus. It was like, it happened so fast. And Harry'd go, right? And so we're both like, and I've got this damn thing on. I'm thinking, oh, God. And I kind of had to be a little attentive to what was going on. So I finally wind this thing up to the boat. And it was like, Jesus, I might have taken 3 hours or 20 minutes. I don't know how long it took. And Harry's still on the platform. I said, get down and take this thing off. I ain't touching it. I go, you have to take the fish off. You're the guide. He goes, not touching it. And I went, whoa, I'm going to have to do that. And it's hard to take a tarpon off. So I finally, without breaking the rod, so I finally worked down the leader and I got the shock leader and Harry always likes to say, you got the grip, bro. So I grabbed the tarpon and the tarpon starts to thrash me around. And I'm thinking, oh, shit, I just hold on tight. So I finally got the tarpon. I got the hook out and the tarpon swims away. And Harry's still on the platform going, yeah, we did. We had a lot of, and many times I remember we were out in front of Duck Key one day when he lived on Duck Key. We just went out. We'd done a little bit of trouble and we're sitting there and all these tarpons start swarming by. And it was like, well, that's cool. We never even made a cast. And it was so fun. It was just like, look at those. Whoa, there's a big one. It was so fun. We didn't care.
Yeah.
We didn't care.
You were very influential in starting up the fly fishing program in Las Rocas and Christmas Island.
Yeah,
right?
I set the whole thing up. Yeah.
What was the fishing like in Las Rocas? Because my father and I went about 8 years ago, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
I went down there, I don't remember the year, maybe 85, and a very wealthy Venezuelan gentleman lived in Caracas, put the money up for it. So I went down there. It had never been fly fished, never. And I went to Gran Roque, and I have limited Spanish, but I did have some money, and I said, I asked around town for the jefe, the head fisherman. So they all directed me to this one man, and this one man was a very cool guy. And he had a lobster boat, like a 35-foot inboard lobster boat, that he would go out to Los Roques and lobster fish, conch were everywhere. I mean, just crazy. And so I hired him to take me out there. And so he, the morning we're going to leave, I was in a little tiny a guest house on Gran Roque, which is an interesting spot. And so we're loading, so I've got a duffel bag and I've got some fly rod tubes, and I brought, some jerky, some candy bars, some stuff. I didn't know what we were going to eat. I didn't know how involved we were going to be. And I didn't bring a bunch of freeze-dried stuff, real meals. Yeah. So I said to him, I said, Juan, we're going to eat fish. He said, yeah, we're going to eat fish. So, okay, good. That's good. So in the middle of his boat was a firebox about 3 by 3 feet, which with a steel box with sand in it. And then they would build a fire and cook in that. That's how they cook on the boat. They lived on the boat, slept on the deck. And so we go out to Los Roques, and it's a beautiful archipelago. I mean, just a beautiful archipelago. And it's classic, with an interior lagoon. So we pull up to the east side, if I remember right. And so I'm trying to yammer on in Spanish. Believe me, I'm better in Latin. And about this, that, and the other. And we pull up, and we throw this gigantic anchor overboard. I mean, all you could do to pick it up and threw the thing in the water. And then he jumps in the water to settle the anchor into the sand, stand on the haft. So I get in the water and with him, and we kind of feed the rope out so the boat has a little bit of, swing. And as I'm in the water, I'm about knee deep, the anchor sitting there. And I look over, and there's about 5 bonefish just snooting away over there, like 30 feet. This is after we'd thrown the anchor in, and they were like, I don't know, 3 pounds. And so I go, Juan, la caña de pesca. So he gets my fly rod, hands it to me, and I just go, 12-foot cast, boink, hook one, catch it, bring it up, and he couldn't believe it. because he brought 2 buckets of mahua, which are glass minnows, for me to fish with. That was going to be my bait. So then I take the fish off, let it go, and he comes over and he takes my fly and he smells my fly, and then he looks at my fly, and then he gets my fly box and he looks at that, he smells that, and he's going through my flies, and then he closes the fly box, hands it back to me, and he starts going on and on and on, and I'm thinking, holy hell, and and I'm thinking, well, what he was saying to me is, I threw it right up the nose hole of the bonefish, because they wouldn't eat anything that wasn't bait.
Oh,
he said,
interesting.
He thought I was that good, but I threw it right up the nose hole. So anyway, so we caught, it was silliness. So the next morning at daylight, we get up and we walk across this little strip of mangroves. So we're climbing through the mangrove trees to the inside of the lagoon, which is grassy. Pretty good thalassia, turtle grass. Sorry. I had to do that. And so anyway, we kind of come out of this mangrove forest, and I'm looking out there, and it was barely daylight, and it was about a middle tide, and all this grass is sticking out of the water. I mean, and I'm thinking, why is the grass out of the water on a middle tide? And all of a sudden,
fish everywhere.
There were probably 6,000 bonefish sleeping, laid up.
Oh my God.
Laid up. Now, I've seen bonefish lay up in the Keys twice in my life. In Los Roques, that first year, I saw all the time. To suspend, just like a tarpon. Not in 10 feet of water, but in 3 feet of water, 2 feet of water. And the whole thing was a giant wad of bonefish. I mean, it was, so I looked at that and I'm thinking, this can't be true, because the light I was looking couldn't see underwater. But all of a sudden I realized those were all tails and dorsal fins.
Was that like on a slack tide where they can just hang in the current?
And so I walked out just 5 feet from the trees, and I just flipped a fly out there, and of course one grabbed it right away and he took off, and the whole place erupted. Then I felt really bad that I ruined their whole day, but it was like, I've never seen anything like that.
Wow. And they hired you to come over there and teach them about fly fishing for these bonefish?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We set the whole thing up with guides, boats, everything. And then I went all over the Bahamas, training guides all over the place.
Did you?
Yeah.
What was the most exotic place that you fished that was really outstanding and you might like to go back at some point?
Well, Christmas Island was exotic and it was interesting, but it's been so beat.
I agree.
That I don't really.
I would never go back there.
I don't really want to go back. I don't know. There's so many places that are so special. I went to Palmyra Atoll, Canton Atoll in the Western Pacific, closer to New Zealand than anywhere. And great bone fishing, beautiful, untouched. Nobody, you can't get there. You can't get there. And they were truly spectacular. I mean, there were yellowfin tunas like bazillions just off the reef, routinely, 60 to 100-pound wahoo, routinely. Pretty big bonefish, bumphead parrotfish that were 6 feet long.
Where's this again?
This is Canton and Palmyra. They were, Canton was close to where Amelia Earhart, it's just north of Gardner Island where she went down. And so I went down there both times under the auspices of looking for a new mecca,
right?
Yeah, for bonefish. So people would hire me to go to, supposedly know what I'm looking at, and then logistically, how could we put it together?
Have you been in New Caledonia?
Never have.
I heard there's big bonefish there.
Yeah.
Did you take people around the world fishing?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
Did you like that?
Yeah, I used to do a lot of it. I would take groups up to 24, and what was really fun because a lot of them were my clients or my clients' friends. You know,
Right.
it wasn't
So
like,
there was some trust there. So you knew that it's all.
And
everything's gonna
so
be
I
good.
don't, you know, to me, if I took one of my clients fishing, if he caught a fish, well, I think I could have caught that fish probably too. You know, I just have more
Right.
experience at it. So I don't need to prove anything by catching that fish. But my thrill, and if I have any credentials as a guide, it's because I like to have my clients make their day. And whether they have any ability or not, it doesn't matter. It's my job to give them the ability to have it happen. And so, yeah, I would every time I took a group, I would go as a second person in that boat. I would do a half day with them. Depends on how many people I had, either a half day or whole day. And I would be their guide on the bow with them. I wouldn't fish. And I'd say, okay, now let's change flies to this, or let me retie that leader. Oh, that's a wind knot. Let's do that. And then so there's a Bahamian or a Venezuelan or somebody on the stern who's pulling the boat. And sometimes I'd pull because I'd like to pull different things. And
Sure.
But I would do the hands-on with the client.
So you're
and
like
I feel like they got their value that way.
you're like a fish caddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like they got their value that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got to be with them. I got to hang out and yap with them and have a great day with them and watch them be excited about what they were doing. So I got all the good.
You're the ultimate guide. We were talking, you know, early in this conversation about the difference of fishing in the Keys and Western fishing
Yeah.
trout streams.
Yeah.
And I was talking to McGuane about this last night. I was saying, for me, when I'm in the Keys, I'm more of a hunter.
Yeah.
And all my feathers are sticking out like you're on point.
Yeah.
Because you have to work so hard to find that fish.
Yeah.
And here it's more like a centering where you just enjoy your environment and it doesn't really matter.
Well, I have angered a whole lot of friends who are fishing guides in Montana by saying, so what's the big deal? Rivers flow downhill. So, you know, and the other thing is, if you float the Madison, there's 3,241 fish per mile. No matter what, if they bite or don't bite, they're still there.
Right.
When you can fish Florida Bay, there might not be a tarpon within 17 miles of you.
Right.
And
Reason,
am I just dumb and can't find the fish today, or are there no fish? There's a whole different layer of knowingness
Right.
or not knowing in the Keys. I mean, if any river here, there's X amount of fish per mile, the Fish and Game can tell you.
Right.
Yeah, they're not leaving.
So I mean, okay, we didn't catch many. Why not? Well,
We didn't care.
barometer, bad fly choice, too big a leader, whatnot. Who knows? Who knows? But in the Keys, there can literally be nothing there.
There, right. How have you evolved with the change of times in Islamorada? Because I can see that for me,
Yeah.
I've been down there since maybe the late 80s,
Yeah.
35 years or
Yeah.
so. And it's you know, I think it's a little bit easier for Nicky because he's newer with it.
Yeah.
But for me, you know, I'm starting to get a little bit calloused.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that because it's still really unbelievable.
Yeah.
But you've been down there since 1970, 71.
Yeah.
And how are you doing with the new numbers that are out there?
Everything is so different. It's so different. You know, I had a meltdown in 1997 where I was kind of at the top of my own personal game.
Mm-hmm.
I was good enough to be considered good by some people. I could catch fish consistently, but it was the beginning of GPS. People were following me around. There were less sanctuaries for me. In 1980, you could fish the ocean side, you could fish Long Key and never see a boat all day. You could go fish Craig Key and never see a boat. You could go fish Man o' War Basin and see 2 boats at the most. It was a very different deal. And then as I evolved to be better simply because I was spending a lot of time and hopefully gathering knowledge. Then other people were in my opinion, short-circuiting all my work.
Right.
As Huff is fond of saying, the way you learn something is pull every inch of it. I pulled every inch of it, and so did he, and so did Harry, and so did all the good guides. But when GPS came out, you could steal a guy's spot just by driving by. You line that island up, hit the button, you got it. You don't have to be, that guy could be a half mile away, but the line, you go a half mile over there and like, oh, I see. And that was what was going on. And so I got angry, I got resentful, and I'll say this, I'm glad I never said anything to anybody. I was internally angry. I didn't yell at people. I was unhappy, but I didn't tell people that I was unhappy with them. But I took note. So in 1997, I had a godson who was kind of going wrong in Atlanta, and he called me up. He needed help. So I moved him out. I adopted him, and I moved him out here and put him through school at that school next door. And it turned out to be the greatest thing for both of us. But I left the Keys that year I did that, 97, to basically end it. I thought, okay, I'm not gonna burn bridges. I'm not gonna yell and scream and curse and stand in the middle of the road and yell at people. I'm just over it. I'm done. I'm out of here. I don't want to do this. I don't want people like cutting in on me, getting in my face. I like solitude. So I came out here with every intention of only going back to honor my commitments for the rest of that year, and done. Goodbye. Don't ever need to do this again. So I had a great time with him, and I went back to the Keys to honor my commitments in the spring. And everybody couldn't have been nicer to me. Rick, so glad you're back. How was your winter, man? What's going on? And I'm realizing, whoa, this is not their problem. This is my problem. These aren't, wife beaters. These are nice guys that are good husbands. They're good fathers. They're ethical, but they're cutting in on me. This is my problem. It's not their problem. And I thought, what am I going to do? And I thought, I'm going to learn how to fish where nobody fishes. There are still places that nobody fishes, in the mud. And why would I bother fishing in the mud when I could go in Man of War Basin, was crystal clear, and see 700 fish? Well, now there's 14 boats in that area. Well, I don't want to be there. And as I tell my clients to this day, I know I could show you 600 tarpon, and I could show you 10 boats that are working on them. I don't want to do either. How about you? And I would rather take a guy and show him 6 tarpon, of which he could hook 5, and never see a boat. And I could still do that most days. Still do it. Not every day, but I can still see damn few boats. And that's all I do.
That's good. Wow.
And the tarpon are the drug. It's like pheasant hunting for birds. Tarpon are the drug, and it brings out all the bad things in everybody because it's such a magnificent animal, and everybody wants the height of that experience. And can't blame them. I get it.
Right.
I mean, I get it, man. But to me, all the things that are bad in the Keys pretty much center around the tarpon fishing. You don't have crazy stuff going on snook fishing. You just go somewhere else. Right. You don't have crazy stuff bone fishing. You just go across the channel and fish the other flat. So the tarpon thing has really gotten to be it's my biggest problem as a guide, because it's the thing I try to avoid the most, is being around somebody else and diluting. It dilutes my experience.
Right.
It dilutes it.
I was watching something recently about Yosemite. I think it was Valley Uprising, the great film about the history of the climbers in Yosemite. And Alex Honnold, the greatest of all time, free solo. They were talking about how many people live in the valley floor with the hotels and the tourists, and no longer can these guys camp all summer inside, the gates. So Alex said, look, I get this. Everybody wants to be here. So he sleeps in his van just outside the gate, and then he goes in on a daily basis and does his climb. So he's learned how to work, among everybody, the same environment as you have.
Yeah.
And you just have to sometimes, wiggle and get a different perspective.
Yeah, and to me, one way I can do it is I'll fish later than anybody else. I'm always the last one in.
I always see you at the breakfast table.
You'll see me at the breakfast table maybe for a long time because I'm stalling, and I would much rather stay out till 6 or 7 at night when everybody else is in at 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah,
and then I've got it to myself for a couple hours for sure.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, you're smart.
Yeah. What would you like to add to this conversation?
I don't know, Andy, but I tell you, one thing I'd just like to point out, and I know all your viewers are aware of this, but you are documenting the end of an era. Me, Steve, Harry. You're documenting the middle of another era. Nikki's age guides, you know, the really good guides, the Jared Raskobs. Those are the guys that are at their prime right now. Right. And then there's going to be some new young guys coming along, and the use of electronics and boat design, engine design, efficiency, all these things, these refinements. The only thing I worry about is I don't worry about the guides that are coming along. There's still going to be clients. As I always tell my clients, if every fish in the Keys disappeared, you'd fish with me for at least 2 years and never even know it.
That's great.
And you become fluent. You
would also learn a lot of Latin. But to me, every client who doesn't have a good day, the only person that blames me for a bad day is me. I've never had a client go, that was terrible, Rick. Yeah, sure it was terrible. It rained, it blew, we saw nothing. But I can't help that, But the bottom line is they blame the situation, they blame the stars, they blame the moon, but I've never heard anybody really blame the guide, of a client that knows anything.
Right.
And to me, there's still going to be clients that are fishing. There are going to be guides that are out there. I just hope they're not fishing for the last 10 fish. That's all. Right. So we gotta figure a way to make sure this resource does better. I mean, there's global warming, there's sea level rising, there's encroachment of population on all areas that are groovy. And I mean, when I take people way up into the Everglades, and I mean remote, I say, that there's 8 million people just up over that horizon, and you'd think we were in Nicaragua.
Right.
It's that remote, but only because Everglades Park. If Everglades Park weren't there, oh, geez. I mean, we'd have condos on East Cape.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You're 73 now. How much longer do you want to be doing all this?
Well, I don't know. I'm physically strong enough. I hope. I think I'm mentally in the game because I love guiding.
Right.
Like I say, do I need to catch another tarpon? I don't. It's not a burning desire. Do I want to catch a snook? Yeah. Do I want to fish a 6-weight rod? Yes. Do I want to fish a 12-weight rod? No. And to me, I have the desire. I mean, I love to fish. Nobody will ever say I don't love to fish, but I love to guide most of all. And if I can I always kid my clients because I take one new client a year. Last year I took 2, because they never fire me. They never see through all the smoke. I have clients that have fished for 52 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have one family, 4 generations.
Wow.
And they keep coming back for another whipping. But I love them. And I guess it's mutual because they're still coming back. And to me, there's no better connection. There's no better connection than sharing what I love and I'm supposedly good at with somebody who doesn't get that opportunity. And that, to me, is what guiding's all about. That's why I love it.
Well, the next time you have a couple free days, call us because we'd love to be with you.
It'd be very fun.
We'll pay you double.
No, I don't even want to
there's
get paid,
two of
buddy.
us.
I don't want to get paid. Friends and money don't go well with me.
Story, where so it's just a